Just to pick up on a couple of things, we have been costing our proposals. But with respect of what's happened to whatever you want to call last Friday, whether you want to call it a budget, the government didn't want to call it a budget because they didn't want to subject it to the scrutiny of the Office for Budget Responsibility, or whether you call it a fiscal event, everyone can see the reaction of the markets to it. The markets have been spooked by the government borrowing money, not for investment, but by borrowing money for day-to-day spending. The International Monetary Fund have expressed their concerns about it. And today we see a situation where the Bank of England is intervening in bond markets, not because of an external economic shock to the country. They are intervening because of the actions of our own government. It's extraordinarily worrying.
Yeah, I just had the former head of the Irish Central Bank on, though, who said that he doesn't think the markets would react any differently if Labour became to power tomorrow and instigated all the things that they promised yesterday.
Well, look, that's a matter of opinion. I mean, I have, and all the Shadow Cabinet have been setting out our very strong fiscal rules. We will only borrow to invest. We will not borrow for day-to-day spending. And I think Labour is now the party of economic competence. Nobody can say that what happened on Friday by this government showed anything like economic competence. I'm afraid this is a government that has lost all claim to economic competence. And where are the Prime Minister and the Chancellor today? If there is a plan, why aren't they out actually telling us what it is and trying to provide reassurance?
Is it fair, I think I'm right in saying this, that Labour wanted to not cut the tax rate for the highest earners, etc., and then use the money raised from that to fund more nurses and the NHS? But economic experts left, right and centre are saying it's a relatively negligible amount of money in reality, actually. It's more kind of playing politics with that. I mean, it's quite classic Labour, isn't it? We're going to tax the rich and use it to fund the NHS. You want to be known as the party of economic competence. How much money is that going to raise? How much money is that going to raise for the NHS?
But we can raise, it isn't just about the reversing of the cut to the top rate of tax. We also would not be reversing the corporation tax cut, which raises £18 billion. We would abolish the non-dom status, which raises a further £3 billion. We would have extended the windfall tax. So what we are doing is being honest with the British public about where we are going to get the money from, and not taking this reckless casino-like gamble by borrowing for day-to-day spending. And that's really what the dividing line is now between the two parties. And that's why we've seen this reaction that we have from whether it's the IMF or indeed the Bank of England today. And I repeat again, if the Conservatives are so confident and they say they've got an economic plan, let's hear it from the Prime Minister and Chancellor. Let's recall Parliament, bring them back, and let's hold them to account.
Well, I must say, I've got to agree with you, Nick, to an extent there, which is that I think a lot of people do really want to hear from Liz Truss and Kwasi Kwarteng, and I've been quite surprised that we haven't. They appear to have left a lot of open ground. I know their conference is coming up. I'll be reporting live from that conference. I'll be gripped, as I think we all will, to see what they have to say there. But they've left a big squidgy window here where voices like Labour Voices and the IMF can fill that. I mean, whether or not it's economic incompetence, it certainly doesn't appear to be particularly good politics as far as I can see. Who's going to be in charge of Great British Energy, one of Keir Starmer's flagship things? Who's running it?
Well, this will be a publicly owned company, so it will be run by the government of the day, obviously a Labour government, because we'll be elected on that platform. Why is this important? Well, we've seen publicly owned companies in other countries driving forward the green agenda. I'm speaking to you from Wales, Patrick, where, we have, I think it's our largest wind farm in Wales that's actually owned by a Swedish company. But what's actually happening there is we've got the wind farm producing our energy needs. But of course, the money is flowing back into Sweden, into the tax coffers there, rather than flowing into our tax coffers.
I get that, absolutely. Absolutely, but there is an argument to suggest that whether or not we could be maximising more money on this and seeing more money into our country, potentially there is somebody in charge of that business who's spent a lifetime operating wind farms or working in the wind farm industry. People might have reservations about Ed Miliband being in charge, whether or not our lights come on.
But I think the issue is that if you want to drive forward this agenda of renewable energy, you do really need to have that government strategy and that government owned company to do it. And I'm not suggesting that where there are other energy companies that are making profits perfectly well, we're not proposing to take over those energy companies or anything like that. I don't think that would be a good use of taxpayers' money. But what we're saying is that this government intervention is absolutely vital if we are to drive forward the green energy and indeed the energy security and the green jobs of the future.